Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it. Hey guys, what's going on? So I am here with the M2S All Terrain Scout. And let me tell you, I thought I'd have a great idea by going out to scout out some new territory here along the Jordan River. So this is a trail that goes more or less up and down the entire Salt Lake Valley and a little bit otherwise. But there's a lot of fun stuff here that I haven't been able to explore because most of the time I'm here on some kind of road bike or hybrid bike. But this time I get a real good opportunity to explore with a stubby little fat tire bike that I'm excited to show you more of. So let's get into it. All right, so M2S is an electric bike company with the initials M2S that stands for Mountains to Sea, and it's definitely a off-road kind of a vibe that you get there. Now this bike is equipped with some commuting accessories, more or less. It's got the fenders, the lights, the rack. It even has a front basket, but it is capable of doing some off-road exploration like we're doing here. And as a matter of fact, we're going to head into the bushes there and see what else we find, so we'll explore a little bit together. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to go along the trail for a little bit. Maybe it'll connect up top to the pedestrian trail, maybe it'll go back in, but this is a bike that can do both of those things if you kind of know what you're getting into, which is fun. So let's go ahead and start up front with one of the highlights, and that is the 4-inch wide tires. Now this is on a 20-inch diameter for a wheel. But the tires are pretty fun. They also add a little bit of cushion. So the bike has no suspension in the rear. It does have a suspension up front, and combine that with the fat tires, and it's not so bad. If you stand up on the parts where it gets rough, say if you're going over like a little branch or something like that, you know, it's not so big of a deal. But you could soften that up. We'll get to that in a little bit. One thing that's kind of fun that I'm using today is the fenders. There's a couple of puddles that I went through, but these fenders are metal, and I like the metal fenders because once you set them up, they're steady right from the get-go. So this is an RST guide front suspension. So that's a specific front suspension that is wide enough to handle the 4-inch wide tires. And of course that has a 135 millimeter travel between top to bottom. So it's not like, you know, a serious mountain bike. I mean, obviously it's got fenders and stuff like that, but it's not like a serious mountain bike suspension. It doesn't have a huge travel, but you know, you don't need a ton of that because you get a fair amount of cushion from the tires itself. And also this isn't a bike that you probably take downhill. If you do, let me know how it goes because that'd be fun, I'm sure. But this fork is actually kind of cool. It has a lockout up here that I used when I was on the road to get to the Jordan River. I used a lockout so it'd be a little bit more efficient, not so much compression when I was braking all the time. It does have 32 millimeter stanchion diameters, which is pretty wide as well. This does have, you know, it's kind of standard equipment, 13 gauge spokes, 135 millimeter hub spacing for the fat tires. But let's talk about the stem. So it does have an adjustable stem with about 100 millimeters worth of reach, and you can adjust that stem. Let's go ahead and show you that. There's a little tab right here you pull down, and then with your thumb pull up, and then from there it'll give you just enough to change the axis of that part of the stem. So you can change it fairly high. I actually like it kind of high when I'm on a bike like this. Latch it down. You can move the display out of the way as well if you'd like. The handlebars have a little bit more of a sweep to them to kind of sweep back and meet you, so they're a little bit comfort. And that's of course combined with the comfort grips. So I think that that's kind of one of the other main purposes of the bike. So it's called the Scout, so we're here scouting around. You know, that's great. However, I think that comfort is another thing they're going for. The fat tires are comfortable, the front shock is nice and comfortable, the sweep back handlebars, the grips, also the seat is fairly plush. So if you wanted to get this bike for comfort, I don't think you would be disappointed at all. It's a really good bike for that purpose as well. On the front, or on the controls rather, are the brake levers. These are good brake levers because they go to the Tektro disc brakes. And of course, these are mechanical disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. Let's show you that down here. So this is the front, and hopefully the shadows aren't too tough. But this is a 180 millimeter disc coming into the mechanical disc brake right here. And I like mechanical disc brakes myself. They're pretty easy to fix. This mechanical disc brake also has a bell that is built into the lever right there. It's kind of hidden. You might not notice. Even if you own the bike for a little while, you might not even notice what this little tab does. That's a little tiny bell that they got built in, which is pretty cool. You do have brake inhibitors coming out of here. That's also a cool safety feature in which it sends an electric cutoff signal to the motor to stop the motor from engaging anytime that you pull on the brake levers. Even if the brakes are disconnected, if you pull on that lever with the motor cable connected, it will disconnect any power going from the motor as you pull on the brake levers. So that's a safety feature that's kind of neat. One thing about it is that when I was putting the bike together, there's these little cuffs like so, and I actually left them off of the bike. These little cuffs, there's a few of them that come with it, but you get some extra ones if you wanted to clean this up a little bit. Personally, I would prefer to see kind of like a loom, you know, kind of like a little sleeve to put over this. Maybe a Velcro one would kind of clean it up, because there's a lot going on right there. And especially if you have some tall kind of cargo, maybe something pointy like a small batch of flowers or something like that, then these would get kind of, you know, in the way of that. Kind of want to wrap them up a little bit. That would be a nice feature to add, but it's a pretty simple thing, a pretty simple upgrade from your local hardware store or bike shop could get that fixed lickety-split. But one cool thing about it is that up here you do have waterproof connectors for all the stuff, for the brake cutoff, the display, the throttle, and anything up here. So that's pretty cool. This stem is actually fairly high because it's a kind of a stout bicycle in the first place. So you see that the head tube up here doesn't come especially high. It's in, you know, it's kind of in parallel with the seat post tube, which is down a little bit smaller. So you do have kind of a raised angle a little bit. But the bigger thing is that this bike is kind of small, and I mean small to the ground. It fits just fine. I mean, I'm slightly taller. I'm about 6 feet tall in the morning, and my legs are 34-inch inseam. So I fit the larger bikes on most occasions, but I didn't feel too bad on this one. One part of it is because of features like that. The other one is because I like to throttle on a bike like this, which you'll go along with me on the ride, and I think you'll enjoy it. So the frame does have a pretty cool step through right here, and I think that's kind of one thing they're going for with this bike is for someone who's a smaller rider. They can get their leg up and in here super easy. They don't got to get their leg going around the back, and also it's fairly low, adjustable with the points here, so you could get this bike to fit quite a few different people, which is pretty cool. I like the paint, the matte gray paint. I saw it on the internet and I thought it looked, you know, a little boring, but when I saw it in person, it has kind of a shine to it, and I think it rounds out the bike pretty well. Definitely looks better in person than what I was expecting. So coming up to the seat, this is a 30.4 for the seat post diameter. I'll go ahead and cinch that down with one hand. Super skill. Awesome. And that's coming up to the standard railing for the seat. The seat is fairly plush. I mean, it's not plush in the sense of like a stuffed animal, but it's got some gel in there that's very comfortable. I'll put it that way. It's from Cell Royale, and it's the model called Look In, and they mean like look into it, because you can see some gel. Pretty cool. Reminds me of some Air Jordans or something. But truth be told, it is a pretty comfy seat. It has some tiny little springage in there. Something that would kind of soften this up is if you had a suspension seat post right here, then you'd have a really cushy ride between the tires, the front suspension, I mean the handlebar geometry and everything. Then with one of these guys and this saddle that's already on here, that's great, then I think you'd have a pretty plush ride. So on the front you do have a 44 tooth chainring up on the front, and that's a fairly smaller size compared to a lot of folding bikes or something, but for something like this it works out pretty well. It's coming into what I believe is a zinc covered chain, which is good for repelling rust. And that comes into the 14 to 28 tooth Shimano cassette in the back. So you have, in all honesty, a fairly narrow gear range on the 7-speed there. It's not going to be something that's going to be super fast as you're pedaling it to keep tension. It can do something fairly low. It doesn't go all the way down to 11, doesn't go all the way up to 38 or so, but I think it's a really good mid-range. So you're not getting a whole lot of stuff that you're probably not going to utilize for a bicycle like this anyway. The derailleur on this is a Shimano Acera, which is a really good system for this kind of package that you're getting. I was expecting a tourney or something a little bit lower end, but in this case the Acera is a really nice addition to it. So other things on the back of the bike, mechanically the brakes are the same, mirrored from the front. The spokes are a little bit stronger because they have to handle the extra torque coming from the motor. So these are actually a 12 gauge spoke, where the ones in the front are a 13. So this rack is actually a bolted on rack, which is great because it's very obviously made for the bicycle, so to speak. There's some spots coming out of the frame that very much accommodate this specific rack. And the rack does have some wiring coming up for the rear light, which is integrated into the main battery. This rack is kind of cool because it has the larger tubing right here for a pannier bag, but you also had the thinner tubing if you had one of the smaller pannier bags, or the pannier bags has a really tiny hook to get over that smaller tubing right there instead of the bigger tubing on this one. One thing it is lacking, however, is one of those little spots down here in which a lot of panniers have the hooks that hook on here, which is great, and then there's a little secondary hook to kind of keep it stable from flopping around. But there's not a ton to hook it onto. I guess you can get on this little eyelet here if you got the right combination of S hooks or something. So this could totally do a double-sided bag very well, and a single side as well. The double-sided would be cool because they flop over the top and you can get them pretty easy. But your local bike shop can definitely get you outfitted with something that'll fit this rack because it's a fairly common width as well. Fenders on the back, which is pretty good. It's always interesting when you see a bike that has only one fender on the front or the rear, but in this case they definitely got you hooked up there. So this basket is kind of neat. I'm told it has about a 25-pound weight limit. Now it looks fairly strong, but in actuality I wouldn't put something terribly heavy in there. So I think the 25-pound limit that M2S has stated is right on the money, because it has the metal piping for the circumference, I suppose, or the outside, and it's also metal on the inside for this stripe right here. However, this end, this is plastic. Also has this little spot for a cup if you wanted to carry a Slurpee or something like that with you. So I think if you trim that away yourself, of course this is all your own doing and everything, but if you trim that away you could probably get a little bit more in there. But I think that this is kind of a good idea because it limits someone from putting like a big 50-pound bag of sand or something like that in there, because this would kind of push it out of the way. But getting into the electric system, let's start up at the tippy front, and this is the headlight. So this headlight's actually kind of neat because the basket, you can actually mount the basket on or you can leave it off, and the light actually can do either. So the light has some extra wiring, some extra length of wire, and it comes bolted into like right in there in that spot. But if you wanted to forego the basket, you can take this guy off, so you can actually put the light on either end. Now this light is, of course, integrated into the main battery pack, so you don't have to switch out batteries or anything like that. A pretty cool thing, which is becoming more and more standard, and I'm really happy to see that M2S is going along with that, because it's great. Coming up a little bit further up front, you have the display. Let me go ahead and show you how to use that. It's a display that's somewhat common. You see it around from time to time, but it has a lot of features and it tells you everything right from the get-go. So it has a remote attachment on the left side with 3 simple buttons, plus, minus, and power. Let's go ahead and press the power button and it'll boot up and show us a couple things. The pedal assist level is right there in the middle, surrounded by that box. Pedal assist level 1, it boots up, and you can press the plus button or the minus button to increase or decrease the pedal assist levels 1 through 5, or you can just turn it off and do 0 if you want it to count stuff without actually giving you assistance. That's pretty much what you're going to be doing 90% of the time. But if you're like one of those detail people, then you can press the power button and that will cycle through different metrics that it's counting, such as your average speed, your max speed, your trip set, a total odometer, and also a timer. Also, it has some other things inside of it as well. If you want to get goofy, you can press and hold a couple of the buttons, plus and minus, and that will reset your trip, and it will reset your average speed and max speed and a few things like that. But you can also go into a couple of pages and change things if you wanted to change how pedal assist reacts, or if you wanted to change from miles to kilometers, or things in that nature. And then go ahead and let's get out of this little menu here. By the way, if you wanted to get into the menu, I was in the reset page. I pressed and held the plus and minus button, and then I pressed the power button, and that got me into some of the settings. So that's the display and how you use it. If you press and hold the plus button, that will turn on the lights, both the backlight for the display, which of course we can't see right now because it's broad daylight, but it turns on the headlight. I don't know if you can see that barely lighting up my hand, as well as the tail light that I was telling you is in the back of the bike. So that's pretty cool. You press and hold the plus button and that will turn it back off again. And if you press and hold the minus button, that will actually do a kind of like a walk assist. It'll push the bike just a little bit, maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour or so, if you wanted to walk alongside the bike and have it propel itself without having to lug around this big heavy bike everywhere, because it's heavy. The thing weighs about 65 pounds in total with the battery and everything. So right here on the left hand side, you have a thumb throttle. So if you twist that down, or if you push that down, whoa, there we go, we're chewing up some of the trail here, then it will engage the motor expressly. So the battery is right here. This is a 48 volt 10 amp hour battery. which is pretty fun. Let's go ahead and unlock it, and then we'll pull it out. There we go. Pretty simple. This is a somewhat common battery casing that can hold a fair amount of cells, and as you can see, it's really easy to get on or off, and it locks into position on there. This of course does come with a charger that I don't have on me, but you can check out the pictures on Electric Bike Review. We'll take the key out. The key is actually necessary for taking the battery out of the bike, but it's not responsible for ignition in any way. This is a geared motor from Bafang. This is a 500 watt motor that peaks at around 750 watts of output. And I gotta tell you, it's pretty fun. It's not a slouch. I think that this bicycle, you know, given the size and everything, really takes a lot of advantage out of a motor like this. Sometimes you see motors of this size on a larger bike, like a cargo bike, and they do pretty good. They get the cargo bike going, but on a bicycle like this, having one of the motors with that kind of equipment, it really is a lot of fun. It kind of rockets the bike. This is a cadence-based pedal assist system, and you can see that quite clearly with the 12 magnet cadence sensor that's right here in the bottom bracket area. So again, you know, not the most discreet of electric bikes, but then again, if you're on a fat tire bike, then you're probably not going to be discreet at all anyway. So speaking of not being discreet, let's go ahead and rip up the river trail a little bit and have some fun. Kind of go down here a little bit along the river. Oh, okay, I know where I am. Cool. Okay. Ooh. Oh yes. Okay. Now we're getting back into the trail area with some bark dust. So let's go ahead and rip around. See the quails. Chase them a little bit. So yeah, these fat tires, I'm on some pretty loose terrain. This is bark dust, and I can kind of eat up the bark dust just fine, do some tight turns, still keep it. You know, I was talking about kind of the versatility of the size of this vehicle. However, you know, when I'm doing some turning, I'm kind of leaning my whole body weight backwards to the edge of the seat, you know, just inside the back there. Oh yeah, what could go wrong? This will be great. There we go. Oh, there's another puddle. I'll kind of take that gingerly. Looks like the tide is lower. Oh, there's a dog park or something like that over there. Okay, let's skip up this a little bit. Woo. This is a great place. I'm glad I took this out. This is. All right, here we go. I think we're getting closer to the trail, the actual trail. Let's do it. Oh, yep, bingo. Here we are. Get back on the boardwalk. So that was a fun part of the all-terrain. Let's do the easy part of the all-terrain right here on the boardwalk area. Whoa. So that motor, it's got punch. You know, I was using it on the slick terrain where it feels pretty good. However, when you get on something like this, it really shines a bit more. You know, you can definitely feel more of that power coming out. And like I said, I've been doing a lot of this on throttle. Let me just put it down on lower pedal assist. Woo! Brakes really bite. All right, okay. Oh, got it down to level 1 pedal assist. Let's see if we can make this tight turn. Oh yeah, not too bad. Wasn't going very fast, but okay. So right now we're on pedal assist, just pedal assist level 1, just for really easy stuff. You know, nothing too crazy. It's one of the good things about a cadence sensor. Cadence sensors are pretty good for low impact. If you just want to get your legs moving at all, then it's pretty cool. Oh, part's closed. What about this part? Jump up. I'm not the first person to do this. Okay. Why don't I go ahead and switch the perspective down to the bottom bracket area, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, I got you pointed back down at the air-cooled controller, as well as the cadence sensor and the chain ring. So I got the pedal assist cranked up to level 5. We'll go ahead and pedal for a little while, not terribly long because I'll get going way too fast for this kind of a trail. But we'll go along for a little bit. I'll probably throttle for a sec, and yeah, we'll go from there. Let's do it. Okay, I couldn't help myself. We were going back this direction, so I just had to go through that puddle again. So, all right, guys, thanks for checking out the M2S All Terrain Scout with me. It's been a lot of fun exploring some new areas, so hopefully they don't mind I got it a little dirty. But if you want to check out the full written review for this bike, along with a bunch of other electric bikes, go to ElectricBikeReview.com. There you can check out, like I said, all the measurements, the weights and specifications for this, as well as other M2S bikes that I'll be covering shortly, as well as some other ones in the past. But you can go there and participate in the forums if you'd like to ask a question, pitch an idea for an upcoming video or topic or bicycle. So thanks for watching, guys. Ride safe.